Let's set the scene. Sophomore year, AP World History class, 2 know-it-all personalities, and 1 discussion, soon to be argument, that created a friendship.
So, this all started in our AP World History class. I walked in as energetic as one could be on a Monday morning. However, my day was brightened when I realized that we'd be debating the fall of the Roman Empire. It was a topic I really felt I had a grasp on. So, when the teacher told us to begin, I was the first one to raise their hand and say, I believe that the Roman Empire fell because the rise of Christianity divided its people and ultimately its empire. Now, I sat back at my desk relatively satisfied with what I had to say. I didn't think anybody could top it until I heard a pretentious scoff come from across the room.
Now, if you couldn't guess, Evan is referring to me. Was the scoff pretentious? Probably. With good reason, definitely. Rome has always been a fascinating subject to me, so naturally I would have studied it before entering my AP World class. So when Evan presented his opinion, well, I had a slightly different belief. Rome fell because it overextended itself, I stated, perhaps a bit arrogantly. The empire was too big, too spread out to properly defend itself from the barbarian attack that ultimately led to its destruction. I countered Evan's point, content that my answer would keep him quiet, a hard thing to do.
Now, first I was baffled at Eitan's audacity to directly come out what I had to say. I was taken aback. I mean, it's something that didn't really happen very often. So I quickly came back with a retort. I said, maybe if Rome's people had been better unified under one system of beliefs, they could have protected themselves under those barbarians that you talked about. Now at this point, Eitan and I were going back and forth and back and forth. The whole class was just watching us. With this final point, I finally thought I had him backed into a corner until he opened his mouth to speak again.
Speaking of unification, Christianity was actually what connected the empire and helped half of it survive and become the Byzantine Empire, which flourished later on in history. Again, I sat back into my chair, smirking satisfactorily, waiting for some kind of an answer.
I opened my mouth to speak, but the bell for class rang. I tried to get my last point out, but I was drowned out by bustling children leaving the classroom. I kept thinking about what Eitan said for the rest of the day. I kept trying to discount it. I didn't want to admit that he was right and that therefore I was wrong. I kept trying and trying, but the more I thought about his point, the more it made sense. I was thinking about it so much it was still in my head when I got back from school that day.
Evan's point stuck with me throughout the entire day as well. I was just turning it over and over in my head. Could Christianity really have been the major hole in the fall of the Roman Empire? Now, when I fixate on something, when I really want to get down to the bottom of it, I won't stop until I succeed. So, of course, I had to call Evan to finish the debate we'd started earlier.
Now, that entire night, I myself have been debating whether or not to call Eitan, so when I saw that he called me, I was overjoyed. I almost go for the phone to answer it, but I decided to let it ring a couple times. I didn't want to seem too desperate, you know.
Now, I know what you're all thinking. This sounds like the beginnings of some romantic relationship between Evan and myself. I can assure you our relationship is strictly professional. But over the phone, we finished our discussion because that's what it became in a much more open-minded way. I shared with him that I'd been thinking about his viewpoint the entire day, and he told me the same thing. Yes, this is the scene in the movie where there's a cute montage of bonding moments between Evan and myself, yada, yada, yada. What actually happened was quite different.
As Eitan said, we continued our discussion on the demise of Rome, but this time we were no longer trying to just simply discount what the other person had to say. We were truly listening to the other person's viewpoint. Through this, we learned that it's okay sometimes to admit that you're wrong or that another opinion just saw something in a different light or a different way that you may not have seen originally.
If I'm being honest with myself now, it was rather refreshing to be shown a different perspective on something I'd considered so concrete. And that brings us back to the topic of this talk, which is encouraging opposition in the classroom. Without this opposition facilitated in our classroom, we wouldn't have learned from one another, grown intellectually and personally, and eventually become as close friends as we are now.
We truly believe that it should be the goal of every classroom, beginning in elementary school, to encourage this opposition, so that students learn to truly listen to one another's opinions and not just try to prove themselves correct.
Because we realize that this opportunity does not present itself often, if at all. And so we believe in creating and nurturing an environment where that voice can be shared and heard.
We believe if we truly commit ourselves to this goal, we'll create students that are more collaborative, understanding, open-minded, and successful in the future. And isn't that what education's all about?
Thank you.
Thank you.